Psych2Goers, welcome back to the channel. We wanted to take a moment and be sure you knew how grateful we were for all your support. Your ongoing support is what helps us make psychology and mental health more accessible to everyone. Now let's continue. Gaslighting is a word that's used a lot in the media these days, but what does gaslighting actually mean? The term originates from the Patrick Hamilton's original 1939 stage play Gaslight, where a husband psychologically manipulates his wife. In the story, the husband attempts to convince his wife that she is insane by manipulating small elements of their environment and insisting that she is mistaken, remembering things incorrectly when she points out the changes he makes. The play's title alludes to how the abusive husband slowly dims the gaslights in their home while pretending nothing has changed in an effort to make his wife doubt her own perceptions. Gaslighting is a form of emotional abuse where someone leads you to question your own reality, memory, or perceptions. So, here are 10 examples of what gaslighting can sound like. As a disclaimer, we want to note that not everyone who says these phrases is automatically a gaslighter. Gaslighting is intentional, and a gaslighter knows exactly what they're saying and what they're doing. 1. What did I do to you? If someone responds to you this way, they may genuinely not know what they have done and are asking you about it. But when it's gaslighting, they are aware they have done something to hurt you and are pretending to play dumb. In defensively posing this question to you, they are denying the impact they had on you and are also forcing you to question it. 2. Everyone around you isn't the problem is you. This is sometimes used as a way to shut down the conversation or dialogue for whatever is happening. This type of language is often referred to as victim blaming, where the gaslighter will make statements that cause you to feel like you are the problem, even when you have fallen victim to something such as bullying or abuse and the situation is outside of your direct control. 3. I'm sorry you feel that way. When someone's hurt you and they say something like this, then it is not a true apology. Instead, it's a way to make you feel like you are the problem. They say that they're sorry that you feel the way you do, rather than apologizing for what they've done or how they made you feel. 4. I don't remember saying that. I think you made that up. This is the go-to phrase that a gaslighter will use to intentionally get you to question your experience, behavior, and thoughts in order to take the focus off of them. 5. It's your anxiety that made me do the things I do. This is a common response when a gaslighter gets called out for their behavior. They use this as a reason to justify their own negative behavior when in fact, they should take responsibility for their own actions instead of choosing to blame you. 6. You need help. This term is used to imply that you are the problem and that you need to address your issues rather than them having to work through their own issues. This is a shutdown response to avoid working things through with you. 7. It's your fault. People who gaslight will neglect any responsibility for their actions or for a situation. Instead, they will directly blame others. This can be a repetitive cycle where you may be made to feel like something is your fault, even if it isn't. You may even apologize for things that aren't your fault to make peace with them. 8. You're too emotional. This implies that your characteristics are seen as flaws, and this can make you question your own sense of who you are. 9. It's not a big deal. People who gaslight have a tendency to minimize the impact that something has on you. They may make you feel like you are making a bigger deal out of something when you are within your right to talk about things that are bothering you and express yourself openly. 10. Why are you so defensive all the time? You're attacking me. This is a common phrase used when you challenge a gaslighter. They have a tendency to flip the conversation towards you and make it out like you are the one who is in the wrong. By accusing you of being defensive and that you're attacking them, then they become the victim. Do any of these phrases sound familiar to you? These are only some of the things a gaslighter will say to you. You may have heard these before or even said them yourself, but this does not necessarily mean you have been gaslighted or that you are a gaslighter. Gaslighting is intentional, and a gaslighter knows full well what they are saying and what they are doing. We encourage you to seek help or guidance if you suspect that gaslighting has played a role in your life. Please like and share this video if it helped you and you think it can help someone else too. The studies and references used are listed in the description below. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and notification bell icon for more Psych2Go videos. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Well, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be. It's definitely evening here in New Zealand, so it's nice to have you here. We thought that little bit of a video could be a good opening to the subject we're talking about. There's a bit of information of where gaslight came from and some of the things that we might recognize, like they mentioned at the end of that video. Well, today we're going to invite our guest on, and which we'll do right now. Hello, Moana. You're muted, Moana. Oh, there you go.
Hello, Shane. How are you?
Good, my friend. Good. And how has your day been?
It's been absolutely beautiful, thank you. The weather's been really nice up here in Taranaki.
Yep. How's the mountain looking?
Oh, wonderful. It's nice and clear.
Nice and clear, great.
Nice and cold.
So just for those ones who have talked about the video in the comments, if you need to, or if you'd like to consider something along with mental health, psychology, gaslighting, depression, things like that, then go to YouTube and check out their page, Psych2Go, on YouTube. You would find an amazing amount of helpful information there. So please make use of that provision, and we'll make sure in the description we will connect the description to that video. So how did you find that video there, Moana?
It was really, really informative. Yeah, and it just, there's so many facets to it, right? Like it's a massive topic.
Yep.
And we can really rip it apart and see. I think it just gives everyone a lot more clarity and understanding of what it actually means, and that it is intentional. It is deliberate. So hey, Scott. So it is very deliberate and very manipulative. And probably the biggest thing is gaslighting is a really, putting yourself into a situation where you really doubt yourself as a person, and you sit back and you're questioning, whoa, what is real and what's not, what is good, what is bad. And all of us would have gone through this experience. But no, it was wonderful, Shane. It was really, really good. I can't wait to follow that, actually. Great.
Yeah, no, they've got some very good videos and a number of different other possible sayings to possibly make you think you're being gaslighted. Or are we a gaslighter?
Yeah.
If we don't know what it is, we can't do anything about it. So when do you think you got first gaslighted?
Oh, gosh. Oh, that's a good question. I'm trying to think back, because there's so many occasions. I'm trying to go back to maybe, I know for myself, I've downplayed a lot of my abuse.
Yeah.
Because of the way my parent at the time spoke to me. So I've always downplayed that. I've never, meaning the mental abuse that I went through was actually not that bad, or the physical abuse was not as bad as my mother, because I'd want to have these conversations to her about how I'm feeling and how it's hurting me. But I'd always get gaslit, because she would throw it back at me and say, oh, well, you have no idea. I've had it far worse.
Yep.
So her playing the victim, and to be honest, she's actually right. She had it way worse than me. But and so I was kind of oh, maybe it's just in my head. It's actually not that bad. And I did that for years, and even I do that now. It's hard to, to really go, whoa, that was really bad. I even struggle to not downplay it, because I always downplayed it. So that was probably a big thing, because I used to experience that a lot. I couldn't talk to my mum because she'd be constantly downplay. And it wasn't until I actually got therapy or some sort of coaching, and I would tell my story, and she would say, this is actually really bad, like this is not good, you know, and I'd be like, oh really? Like I'd be like, oh, I just thought it was quite normal, you know, I didn't think it was that bad. Like you know, I didn't, to me, like abuse was just like, well, she didn't give me a black eye or smash me up, like, but it was a lot of mental stuff and manipulation. And so, yes, that was probably a huge thing. And then that's how I've gone through my journey, as like, oh, I'm the problem. And I've done that right throughout my whole life until probably really recently, like, oh, fuck, you know, sorry. What have I done? What have I done wrong this time? So that's where the gaslighting's like, I'm the problem. What have I done this time?
Okay, before we carry on, we just had a question come in with regards to this. How important is therapy to identify abuse?
Massive. Because and I'm not just saying that lightly, because I have tried to work through this myself, and I had nothing to go off. I didn't understand. I didn't even know what the word gaslighting was until somebody had said it. I didn't have any tools. What I did back then, when I had nothing, no therapy whatsoever, I was just like, you know what, I need to numb it. I need to numb my pain. I don't know how to deal with this, so I'm just going to run and avoid it, numb it, and just keep really, really busy. So I feel that getting somebody that you trust, I think that's really, really crucial. Finding someone that's on a similar journey to you, that understands religious trauma, for starters, because I've gone from one therapist to another, and if they don't understand what we've been through, it's very difficult to have that connection. So you need someone that's been on the similar journey, that gets you, is so crucial. And then they can you can tell your story, and then they can go, wow, then they can start working with you through that and giving you the tools to overcome what you need to overcome. Because I had so many aha moments where I was like, whoa, like I didn't realize, you know, for example, like never feeling good enough, or just having that rushing woman syndrome, where I was like trying to get validation from everyone, and if I do that, and if I keep giving to everyone, then I will be loved and validated. But you don't actually know that until you get the therapy, and you're like, oh, so I fornicated, for example. It wasn't actually the sex, it was more about, I just want someone to love me. And when I had a therapist to highlight that actually, Moana, you just wanted to be loved, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
So can you think back to when you were a J-dub? Were you ever, you mentioned a few things, so that could have been while you're a J-dub, before, or even up to present. Were there anything that you felt gaslighted or lit in the J-dub organisation?
Oh, many. Just like being silently reproved.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, I'm the problem, like, because I did fornicate, because I was a solo mum at the time. So I fornicated, and then I was put on silent reproval, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, what is wrong with me? They never explained to me, like, oh, actually, Moana, you probably should get some therapy, because it might be a little bit deeper. You might be seeking more. There might be something, you know, like, I didn't get any of that. It was just like, yeah, you need to be silently reproved, and you need to make sure you come to the meetings and do study and be repentant and blah, blah, blah. So I was just internal shame, guilt, judgment, all of those things. So definitely, that's one occasion.
Yeah. I know Jehovah's Witnesses recently have upped the ante with regards to different things that are going on. One thing that I did notice, they talked about 1975 as being a year which certain events were going to happen. In more recent times, they've gone, well, actually, it was a select few that ran ahead, and they didn't have it right. So for all those years, we were taught one thing, and then it didn't happen, and now they're telling us we're wrong. So there's lots of things that we've been part of, whether we're in a religion, whether we're in humanity, we're all gaslit to a certain degree. So you mentioned before about therapy. That's a must. I take it from your comment?
If you want to be on a healing journey and overcome all this, yeah, I definitely recommend it. But I do believe, like, you do need to find that trust first, like find someone that really is on the same level, same story, like same journey as you. Yeah.
Yep. Just a side point. How would you work that out? How could you work out whether you could trust or whether you would feel safe?
Being in these groups, like, so with the, you know, like Life After JW, like I came across Ryan, who's a psychiatrist in Canada, is it? America?
Peru,
I did a few
Peru.
sessions with him. Oh, Peru, sorry. So I did probably about 3 sessions with him because I was sort of noticing just this year I was still mentally in, even though I've been out for 19 or 20 years. So I just needed that clarity. But I wanted to work with him because, number one, he was an ex-JW. Number two, I'd actually read comments that people had worked with him and had wonderful feedback. So that trust, getting to know him, following him, reading his website, you know, that's just one example. Of how you just do your research. Yeah, do your research and find out what other people are saying.
Okay, good. Yeah, Ryan's an excellent one. There's a number of others too around the XJW community now that can really help. So for those who are listening, those who are watching, please don't think you're alone. There are some that really can help. You've just heard Moana say what she said about the help that Ryan gave her. And we'll put the link to Ryan's Facebook. He's on Facebook, and also he's got a webpage, so that if you wish to reach out to him, you're able to do that. Okay, so let's move on. Now, we've come out of the JW.
Can I just mention one thing though? Like, and also with you, Shane, like you did an interview with Dr.
Daryl?
Daryl, yeah. And so I jumped on that live and I had a listen, and I found a connection with him, like, you know, and he talked about recovering from religion, and then he talked about like they have a group that you can go into, and if you're wanting to get healing. So that's where we're at, Shane? Like we're on this new, you know, found this place where we can support each other, and so that's another avenue as well. But just watching these lives are going to give you that information that you need for therapy. That's what I want to say.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so let's just go back onto our journey. So in everyday life, so putting aside the J-dubs where we know the woman got gaslit, the elders would put them down and they would go, no, you don't need to think like that, or some other sort of phrase that they bring out of their bags or somewhere else. What can we do in everyday life to be able to make sure, one, we're not going to be gaslit, and two, we'll start with that, but we'll go on to whether we know we're a gaslighter of an individual.
Yeah.
So let's have a look at the first one.
Are you asking me?
Yeah, let's move on to the first one. In everyday life, with regards to, being gaslit, maybe it's a boss, maybe it's in a relationship, maybe it's a friend. How can we make sure we look after ourselves from that sort of thing?
I don't think you can really like avoid gaslighting. Like it's probably going to happen. But I think the biggest thing for me, once I understood what gaslighting was, and then mastering what it meant and what scenarios are out there in my own situation, then I'm able to recognize it when it happens. So when it happens to me and I'm being gaslighted, I'm like, whoa, like I think the most important thing is to create that awareness first. It's like, I've just been gaslighted. And owning it and looking into it, and what is this about? How is this affecting me? How's it triggering me, anchoring me, or whatever? And just that's the first step, is to recognize it. and be like, I've just been gaslit.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
And then I think the most important thing is like, how has this triggered me? How can I pull the situation apart? Like, and what do I do from there? So it's just really understanding. Yeah, I think that was the most important thing to me, is like recognizing it, and rather than just not knowing.
Yeah.
Probably the most important part to start with. Yeah.
Yeah. Can I ask, do you have an example of one thing that at one time you would not have recognized it, but now you recognize it as being gaslit?
Yeah, probably quite a few actually, and it's only because once I learned what it was, and I was going, holy shit, I've been
Yeah.
gaslit a lot.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
probably the biggest one for me that's really affected my life in a big way is, being taught from a very young age about Adam and Eve. Like, I'm just all over this at the moment, where Eve ate that apple. She was a sinner. She manipulated her husband, or Adam. They were kicked out of that Garden of Eden. And to me, as a young child, I felt manipulated and gaslighted in the point where I doubt myself as a woman, because I believed, or what I was taught was like, our menstrual cycle and pregnancy, or like labor pains, was her fault, and we are being punished. So I feel gaslit in the way that I've never felt good enough, and that had a huge part to play in it, because I was like, women can't be trusted, women can't make a decision because of that event or that story that was portrayed, and I carried that for years. It's like, I don't trust myself. I'm a woman.
Yep.
I'm not good enough. I'm powerless. Like, I can't. A man needs to take over. So I feel that that's a huge gaslighting.
Yeah. So what steps did you, once you worked that out, where did you go from there, so that you realized that that was actually a gaslight, and you then were more aware of what was going on?
So probably because I had a massive disconnection to myself as a woman, and when I started like going into workshops and courses around empowering women and understanding the sacredness of the menstrual cycle, which you never get told about, learning about the power of being a woman, like connecting with myself. I was like, what is a goddess? What is a divine feminine? Like, I didn't know what that was. And once you start to learn about, the sacredness and the power of our intuition as a woman, and learning about the history of why women feel so powerless through society, through the beauty industry, for example, everything. It's not just religion. It's like a worldwide thing. When you start to pull it apart, you're like, oh, no wonder why women feel so powerless.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was my journey to unravel all that and understand, like, because in the beginning it was all about affirmations and like standing in front of the mirror and like, you're so beautiful, and that was all really nice. But I was like, well, why am I beautiful? Because it's not just about surface or my physical. Like, why should I fall in love with myself? What is so great about me? And when I did that internal work of understanding, my nerve endings and, like how my body works, how it's able to create a child, the birthing, the rebirth, how magical is that? Like, I get to have a menstrual cycle. I bleed every month and I don't die. Like, isn't that powerful on its own? But we've been so disconnected from that. And once you start to learn and go, whoa, we underestimate ourselves as a woman, but until you learn this stuff, you have no idea, and you don't get taught that in the organization.
Yeah, no, you definitely don't. Did you find one particular area more helpful, or a publication, a website that really helped you start your journey and working out the gaslighting side of things? Was there any one thing that stands out to you?
One of my favorites, like understanding gaslighting.
Yeah.
I'm trying to, not in particular, to be honest. I think it's just been a whole lot of research and, just being introduced that through my sort of therapy sessions, and then just going from there. Yeah. Yeah. But the biggest thing for me is, just finding that awareness around it and just acknowledging it, and just knowing that I can actually stand up for myself and be like, have a discussion about it. Like, no, you've actually just gaslit me, and explaining that, and having that conversation, opening up the conversation, and making everyone aware of it, because I've even gaslit. Like, I've done it myself, even internally to myself. And
can you just explain that a little bit? How do we gaslight ourselves?
Yeah, I guess it's kind of like you like that expectation of. I'm just trying to think of a situation. There's so many, but more of a blaming thing. Like, I can't make a proper decision, and it's more of an internal process. Like, you could never be good enough. Like, manipulating myself out of creating a beautiful future for myself. Like, that belief system that, like, for me, for example, like, I really want to create a podcast, and I've started it.
Yep.
Started this podcast. And the whole point behind it was to vocalize, be open to my voice. But then I constantly manipulate myself. Like, who the hell do you think you are? And, you don't deserve to put yourself out there.
Yeah. You just had a couple of comments there come in. It wasn't that bad, or you must have remembered wrong.
Yeah.
Just think about those. I guess I've done that to myself as well.
Yeah. Yep.
Mm.
Yeah, all the time. Yeah. And we definitely do it more than we expect. But it's just, if you're aware of it and just acknowledge it, and just actually pull yourself up, because that's the first step, is just recognizing it, and then go, now what do I do? Like, and asking myself, is this actually true?
Okay. Yeah.
Or is this something that I've been taught or manipulated into thinking? For example, it's something so simple, but like, and you'll understand this with what we've been through, but like, you look at the sky and you've been told that it's green. The sky is green, the sky is green, the sky is green. But you get to a certain point where you're like, is the sky actually green? Or is it because it's green because that's what I was taught? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
And so that's that whole, I don't know if it's green. I don't know if it's blue. But it's and then just asking you, of course it's blue, like, asking you to trust. I think the biggest thing is, like, what do you feel internally? Like, how does that feel in your intuition? Can you pick up on that and just be like, something's just off? It doesn't feel right. I feel like I've been gaslit. This is not good. And knowing that this is, no, I can feel it in my body. It's making me feel uncomfortable. I might feel a little bit panicky or out of breath.
Yep.
Something's triggering me inside. That's a sign that, no, this is not good. Yeah. And then,
Okay, cool.
And then for me, it's like, how do I get to change the story, the narrative? Like, do I want to continue down this road to negativity, to allow people to gaslight me, or am I going to start creating some boundaries?
Yep.
Or am I going to change the narrative and be like, no, I know I'm right. My intuition, my gut my body is telling me that this is not okay. What am I going to do about it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So if we gaslight ourselves, does that mean we might be gaslighting others?
Yep.
In our everyday activities?
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. Because
how do we know that?
So I mean, I'm quite an energetic person. So I believe that whatever we think, however we react internally on a mental, platform, like how we think mentally is what we project outwardly. So how people treat us on the outward is exactly how we treat ourselves on the inward. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. And you can pick this up by playing with it, playing with the energy, like noticing how we're gaslighting ourselves. And it's like, well, how am I projecting that out? Or someone might gaslight us. And I always ask myself, how have I actually brought this in? Like recognizing this person's just gaslighted me. Have I, reflected something? Like I always believe that we reflect
Okay. Yeah.
from each other. That's my belief. And I'm normally right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you caught yourself lately doing it? Now that you're aware of what gaslighting is?
Yep. I'm going to be really honest. Yeah, just sometimes, like, not, most of it, I don't really click until later, but it could be an ego thing. Yeah. Sometimes I do get into a, I believe that we're always healing, we're always learning, and this has been a great awareness for me. Like I'm going through a transition of I don't like being told what to do or being pressured into doing things or being pushed. I don't like being pushed, and I know that so I've made that aware that I may have gaslighted someone, but I found that they've been pushy. And I'm aware of that. And I've apologized, like I've had that conversation. But for me, it's just like I was always forced into doing something because of this upbringing that we had or the organization that we've been in. So I'm recognizing it. I know where it comes from.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm actually like, whoa, step back, girl. And this is actually not okay. Like, this is just the transformation. This is the transition that I'm making right now. Like, yeah.
So you tell yourself off.
Yeah. So, and just apologize. Yeah.
Now,
But
Scott's
when
just
people
asking the question. Oh, sorry, Karen.
No, you go.
Karen. No, I was just saying, Scott's just asking for some of the resources that we can find on the net. We mentioned before about Psych2Go on YouTube. It's a very good place. You got any others?
There's some really good podcasts.
Cool.
Out there. I was just I'm just trying to look it up. But if you go into like Spotify or Apple, there's a lot of resources out there. There's one called the Contemplative Light podcast, and this one's around religious abuse, gaslighting.
Okay.
So I can forward that. Yeah, if we've got any, we can put it into the comments. Absolutely. Yeah.
When you first started looking online, did you type in a specific word or did they just come up in the podcast? Gaslighting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just gaslighting. Yeah. Podcasts or even on Instagram, there's a lot of information on there. You just put hashtag gaslighting and it can bring up a lot of really good resources and information. Yeah. But I can share some if you want. Yeah.
Yeah,
No
we'll
worries.
get you to put them in the comments afterwards. No, that's good to be able to do that. So you sort of tell yourself off. Are there practices or habits that we can put into place so that, say, if we're finding we are gaslighting people, what would you recommend for us to work on that so we stop it and are more aware that we have that tendency?
Yeah. So for me, I go straight to the emotion to start with. I'm like, why? What emotion is coming up for me right now? And normally it could be like a little bit of anger, frustration, and then I'm like, okay, where does that come from? Could be my inner child, or just some stuff from our upbringing or whatever. Finding where that comes from. So then I'm like, I get it, and then I try to ground myself, because we can get so caught up in our ego, and I'm angry and I'm frustrated. So it's like, okay, Moana, go and ground yourself. And I'm talking about things like go for a walk in nature or something, so I can because there's something beautiful about nature where it's just really calming. Just take 10, 15 minutes and just put your shoes on, or even walk around on the grass in bare feet, or go for a walk somewhere and just give yourself that moment to just be still with nature. That'll be a huge recommendation, because listening to the sounds of the birds, the smell of the river or the beach, like ground. That's what I mean by grounding. Just sit still or go for a little walk, and then I'd recommend box breathing. If you're in a panic state where you're like, something's triggering, like I highly recommend something beautiful, something simple like box breathing. So box breathing is about really calming down your nervous system, so you're not in a state of fight and flight where you're so anxious and stressed. So box breathing is when you take a nice deep breath in on 4. So you'd count 4 as you breathe in, and then you would hold that breath for 4 seconds, and then you'd breathe out. So it's like a box. So they say it's like a box. So you breathe in for 4, hold for 4 and out, and then continue doing that. And I would do that about 3 times. And what it does is it calms down your nervous system, so you're not ready to attack or run from that lion or that bear.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happens if we're on the other side? So that's a good way, that if we find ourselves gaslighting, what about those ones who struggle to come to terms that they might be gaslit all the time? What steps can they take?
That they've been gaslit all the time and don't recognize
and they
it?
they don't recognize it, and they just you got it.
Or they don't want to do anything about it, or
maybe they struggle, maybe they don't know.
So they realize they've been gaslit, but they don't know what to do about.
Yes. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah. So the biggest thing is clarity, like understanding, like that's why I mean, like, understand gaslighting and the importance behind the definition and your own experience with it. Like, how does it feel? Is it hurting you on an emotional level? Is it affecting you? And do you want to do something about it? Yeah, you have to master it. You have to understand what it's about, so then you can go, this is actually not okay. That's the awareness that you want. This is not okay. What action do I want to take to do something about it? And that's where we start to look at those options of help. Yeah.
So let's just take, for example, in an abusive relationship, you might be the lady, the woman, and your partner, your husband, your wife is going, oh, no, you've just been too sensitive. You're just not, no, I didn't say that. How can we use, you mentioned all those things just before. What would be a good step? You mentioned the emotion and how it might hurt you.
Yeah. So if that hurts, when you've been told that, like, it's recognizing it in your body, like we spoke about before, and then just going, what do you want for your life? Like, it's really going, do you want to continue to put up with that, or do you want to find ways to communicate that, or do you want to get out? Like, so those are the things that you need to be aware about yourself. Like, you need to find a new perspective of like, well, who am I? Am I okay with being treated like this, or do I want to do something about it? And the way that you do that is, just start talking to somebody. Like, find that person that you trust and allow it to be expressed vocally. Let it off your chest, and then you can, when you start to vocalize it, you can actually start to get a different perspective, like get a bigger perspective or a clearer perspective when you voice it. And then you can actually go, oh, actually, this is not what I want. This is not what I like. And speaking from experience, like, I've been married to my husband for a while, 2008. So I'm like, I don't even know. How many years is it? 12 maybe? I don't know. So he's seen
13.
my transition. Oh, 13?
Yeah.
So he's seen my transition of being a very submissive wife, just doesn't want to rock the boat, wants to keep devoted to him. I always thought he's the head of the house. Like, we'll just go with it. But over time, I'm just starting to come into my own, and that's about getting to know yourself. And like, well, what do I like? What is my passions? Like, once you're on this journey of rediscovering yourself, you start to become more aware of who you are and what you desire. But that started off with like, what is my purpose?
Okay.
Journaling, like having a journal, a bit of private that you can tuck away and express all of your feelings, and just start recognizing, like, what do I want for my life? Do I want to be continuing to be submissive, or do I want to actually, for me, I started to I want to feel equal.
Okay.
Yeah, like I want to be in equality. So those are the things that you get to tap into and express more. And me and Ross, we've both gaslighted each other over this time, but we've recognized it, and we're coming to learn the new transitions. We're learning. We're on a journey to like, wow, we need to communicate better, or no, I actually don't want to do that anymore. So it just depends, on the situation, but I definitely think you need to focus on yourself first.
Yep.
And go on a journey for you. And that's what I've done. I've spent years just trying to work on myself, and I've done all of that through journaling, through going, like, just grounding myself with nature, breath work, static dance, all of those things that really help me ground and help me find a deeper connection with myself as a woman, because I didn't have any.
Yeah. So can I ask then, how did you approach Ross, your husband, when you realized this?
So it's been a learning curve. So sometimes it's been hard, like difficult to communicate, and we've had a few disagreements. I think it started off like that. We're both not knowing how to communicate on the same level. So it hasn't come out, like, it's probably come out a little bit blunt to start with. And then I've been able to recognize that, okay, maybe, I need to start learning to be more compassionate. So listening to each other is something I've learned on the journey. Come into a place of compassion.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I've had to experience that, and that's okay. Like, I've made I'm going to say this, I've made a lot of fuck ups, but you have to make beautiful, intentional fuck ups to learn from it.
Yes, you do.
And that's why I share it. This is my truth, and I share that with you because it's not going to be an easy transition. There's been times where I've actually wanted to leave my relationship, because I just think, well, if I just run, it'll be easier.
Yeah.
But then, you know, we sort of sit down and have a talk, and then when we come to a place of compassion, and that's the most important thing is, yeah, when I say compassion, I'm meaning like, how am I making that person feel? Am I going to hurt them or gaslight them or be blunt? Or am I going to listen? And that's compassion, like sitting back. How can I come into a place of compassion where I can be understanding and not hurtful, but get our message across in a compassionate way? Yeah.
Is it worth it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. What
makes you so certain?
For me on a personal level, like that man has been there for me through all of the shit. You know, the times where I was so suicidal and he used to rock me to sleep. And I was like, I know that man's a very loyal person. And, you know, we have ups and downs, but at the end of it, at the core of it, we really do love each other and we're worth fighting for. Yeah, I do see a lot of beautiful potential. And if you can see that, like if you can see the potential of like, we can actually create magic if we come to a place of just respecting each other more. If the whole world came to a place of compassion, we'd have a pretty beautiful world.
We would, yeah.
Yeah, but yes, it is worth the fight.
Yeah, so there are times when it's worth the effort. What happens if there's times when we put the effort in and nothing changes?
Yeah. Then that's where you really need to sit with yourself and make a decision, you know, is this, because you can never change anyone. That's one thing you cannot change anybody. They have to want to change. So if they're not wanting to come to, you know, like together as one to work on your marriage or whatever, your relationship together, then you have to ask yourself, is this worth fighting for? And only you will know that with time and patience. But I feel if you really have made the effort to come from a place of love and compassion to make this work and the other person doesn't want to, then you have to make a decision. Do I want to carry on or do I want to try something different? Yeah.
Is there any right or wrong answer to that?
No. What do you mean?
If we make a choice and it turns out to be wrong, what can we do? Because we still might be gaslighting ourselves.
I don't think, no, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just like trust. It really does come down to a trust thing with yourself, and whatever happens, you know, like go with the journey, and whether it goes pear-shaped or not, it's a process, and it's there. I believe everything happens in our life for a reason.
Yeah.
Everything. And I always take it as like, it's not a perfect journey, and that's okay, because this is where I get to learn something from everything. So if you walk out of a relationship or something, what do I get to learn, whether it turns out good or bad? What do I get to experience in this moment? And how do I build up my strength? And those are all the beautiful things. We can look at our whole life like that, even being brought up, you know, with all of this religious stuff that we've been through, gaslighting. I always think, and I never used to think like this before, but now I think, what do I get to learn from this? How do I build my strength? You know, I am the person that I am today because I went through the shit.
Yeah.
And it was never right or wrong or good or bad. Like there was some pretty bad rock bottoms. But I went through that because it got me to where I am today. I wouldn't be on this call with you. I wouldn't even know who you are, Shane. And you wouldn't know me.
I wouldn't.
And we're going on a massive journey. Like it's been, you know, like a lot of unraveling and working through all of our stuff. And 1 minute I'm up and 1 minute I'm down. And I always look at it as an ocean. You know, you look at the ocean and it's so beautiful, right? Sometimes it's an absolute shitstorm and you don't want to go near it because you'll tumble and turn and fall over and hurt yourself, nearly die, whatever.
Yeah.
And then other days it could just be like perfectly calm. And that's life. Life is like that, and it's all beautiful. Yeah. Because how they describe the paradise on earth, I'm just like, that would be, I always used to think, it would be so boring after a while, just being so perfect all the time. Like life's a journey, and it's full of beautiful things, and all of it's beautiful, whether it's bad, whether it's good, it's all delicious. Yeah. Because you always get, I always believe from a rock bottom, that's where you create your magic, is when you come out of that, you know, like it's a journey, it's a process. You start to learn things and you're like, that's exactly why I went through that to get to this. Yep.
So as a way of a little bit of encouragement for those ones who are watching, those ones who might stumble over the channel, what would you encourage them with regards to gaslighting in their lives?
Going forward, just it's actually like knowing that it's not okay. Yeah, and just you don't from now on we don't accept that as being okay, because it's actually not. And that'll be and that you can change that if you want to. And nip it on the bud a lot quicker. When you put some practice, when you put some tools into place. And just being like, I'm not going to accept that anymore, because that really hurts. And remember, we are human, and there will be times where we have an oopsie daisy and be like, oh shit, you know, like, that was a bit naughty. But as long as you can recognize it and actually come from a place of like, I'm actually going to be a big person and apologize, and that's awesome. It's when you decide not to apologize, then we've got an issue, you know, like it's okay. And we should accept apologies as well when we're being gaslit. And if we don't, then we need to create some boundaries. Yeah.
What could be one of those boundaries? What could we say to ourselves?
When it comes to boundary work, just like putting up a strong, like, no, I'm cutting this conversation. Like nipping it. And saying, and verbalizing it, if you wish, or walking away from that situation. And if it's so bad that they're not willing to see the error or mistake or not want to apologize, then it's like, well, what's the next step? Like, they don't want to listen to me. So then we have to create a boundary of like, I can't have those people. I will send love out to you, but I can't have people in my group or in my space that are going to bring me down.
Do we have to give ourselves permission?
Giving yourself permission?
To do that. Do we have to give ourselves permission? Do we have to ask anybody else for that?
No, definitely not. We can get our permission from ourselves. We're like, go for it. Yeah.
Cool. We've just had a comment come in directed at you, Moana.
Wow.
Because what we've seen tonight is a very real you, and we want to say thank you for being open, being your authentic self, showing your compassion, showing your loving, kind side. And it's been a delight to have you on here talking about, in a nice, practical way, the aspect of gaslighting. So thank you very much for being here.
Oh, thank you. And I just want to thank everyone that tunes in and listens. And, you know, if you want to send a friend's request, like, feel free. But I'm so honored to be here. To, I'm so, it was such a scary feeling to go into these groups, and now look what we get to create together.
Absolutely.
We get to create so much magic, and we get to create connection, and it's all so delicious. Like, I just want to be friends with all of you. And please continue to share your stories, because that's what really helped me wake up and to realize, like, just reading your stories was like, whoa,
Yeah.
there's so much connection. Like, I'm not the only one going through this. So yeah, keep doing what you're doing and reach out. We're all here to support you.
Absolutely. Thank you once again for being here. For those ones in watching right now, it's been great to have you here. We look forward to seeing you again. For those who will watch it later, if you have any questions, Moana will be able to see what comes up, and she'll be able to answer some of them for you. So please put them in the comments. And if you've got any other questions you'd like to have answered by Moana, then by all means reach out to her. The invitation was there just now. So thanks for everybody for being here. We've certainly appreciated you being on the live stream. And until our next one, we look forward to seeing you again midweek of an interesting character who's going to show us how she has moved on. But until then, keep safe, look after yourself, and bye for now. See you later.